I've got enough GH to do 60 units per week. How do I split that up?
Take all of it.
Yeah. Like on the first of the month. Don't even bother with weekly.
Welcome back to Blood, Sweat, and Gear. I'm joined by my
just
co-hosts Skip Hill and Scott
same
McNally.
shit. Exactly.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Blood, Sweat, and Gear with coaches Skip Hill, Andrew Berry, and myself, Scott McNally. We are brought to you by TrueNutrition.com. Use our code ThinkSupplementSource.ca for Canadians. Of course, we are brought to you by Patreon, and today we are joined by Big Paul Barnett. What's up, Paul? Thanks for joining us, man.
What's up? What's going on, guys?
We just do like a crossover episode. Everybody loves crossovers, you know?
Sounds fun, man.
Do the things we do, but with Paul. We listen to Skip tell us all sorts of rambling stories about
Paul
going to the grocery store.
Rambling.
One arm Paul. I'm not Big Paul anymore.
Oh, yeah. So before we end the show today, we are going to go in deep to talk about, all your stuff. We want to hear all about it. I saw you posting those pictures you showed us before we started. You just had your surgery done. I want to hear all about like the peptide protocol and all of that
all the
stuff.
drugs.
And yes, and all the plans for that stuff. But we do have a bunch of listener questions. We're going to start with those. And, I thought this one was kind of interesting the way he worded it. He said, I've got enough GH to do 60 units per week. How do I split that up to get the most out of it for making gains? And of course, we should definitely turn to our guest host, Paul, to give him the floor first on this one.
Take all of it.
Yeah. Like on the first of the month. Don't even bother with weekly.
Yeah, I've tried every sort of GH protocol that there is, and I honestly, where I have landed is take as much as I can afford and tolerate and do it before bed. I'm diabetic, so I'm acutely aware of my glucose levels. I keep a CGM going so I can monitor what's going on. And what I've noticed during contest prep, I will split up the doses for the lipotic effect of it during the day. But what I've noticed is if I take it during the day, while I'm eating carbohydrates, that my glucose levels get a little too high during the day. And what I've found, it seems to keep my glucose levels the best when I just take it all before bed in one single bolus and do it that way. And I've seen no difference in IGF-1 levels or anything like that when I do it that way. But contest prep, usually I'll split it up. I'll take half in the morning and half before bed, and then that's usually how I do it. I know a lot of guys say take it before fasted cardio, but it's not even going to be peaked before 2 hours. It takes about 2 hours for it to peak anyway, so it's kind of pointless doing that unless you're going to get up 2 hours before you do your fasted cardio. So, I mean, that's sort of my take on it. It has about 6 hour half-life, but the IGF-1 effect of it, from what I understand, is like 36 to 48 hours that it stays. IGF-1 will stay elevated when you're taking growth hormone. So really, like the whole splitting it up, really the only compelling reason I can see to do so is for fat burning.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
I think everything you said is wrong. This is
Everything I said is wrong.
This
Good.
podcast.
Controversy.
Just in one of those moods. No, and I'm totally kidding.
Skip Hill destroys Paul Barnett in the next PSG.
Just out of the blue, like, I don't know, he was having a bad day or something. Got Paul while he was in a sling, all one-handed and everything else. Couldn't even come back.
I'm also lazy, and I don't want to take 4 different shots during the day. I know guys that'll break it up into multiple doses.
Yeah.
Or they pretend they like the shots. They get all excited like it's some kind of adrenaline. I'm like, I've been doing drugs for 30 years. I still don't look for. I wake up and I go, it's gear day.
Half the time I even forget to take them. I was thinking about, like, since I've had my surgery, like I was thinking today, I'm like, when was the last time I took a shot of testosterone?
No.
I'm thinking to myself, and it's been like fucking 2 weeks.
Now, here's what I was going to ask you, or make the point. I don't think it's necessarily taking, and I'm asking all you guys what you think. It's not necessarily, I think, taking the GH prior to cardio makes it more of a necessarily fat burn, but it will help to counter the rise in blood We'll go with BG. It's easier to say. BG levels. So I guess I always looked at it from that standpoint versus, man, I'm going to burn so much more fat. And maybe people assume that. Maybe I'm misreading. Maybe that's I don't want to say myth, but I mean, that's the understanding.
Well, it does shift you to lipid metabolism. GH is lipotic. So it does, really, at the end of the day, it's a very expensive fat burner. I mean, it's probably not as effective as taking clenbuterol or something.
Well, that's what I mean. Where do we rank it? It's kind of like, it's there. It's like there's green tea here, there's GH, and then there's everything else.
I would say it's one of those drugs that makes you look leaner all the time without necessarily burning fat. Because we all know, well, now we're talking about us now, but back in the day, I remember seeing guys that were who could afford mass amounts of GH, when I was in my 20s and they were in their 40s, and these guys were, had veins popping everywhere, and when you saw them without their shirt on, you're like, oh, they're not actually that lean. It's just that the peripheral, the peripheral, like arms and legs, veiny, and made you think that they had this conditioning level that they probably didn't have. So
and
I think it's kind of
that they wouldn't
fullness,
have
fullness. So I think it's definitely an aesthetic compound.
Yeah.
But in terms of how to split it up, if he's training 5 days, I would just take it on training days, 12 units, whether it's one bolus shot at some point during the day or split it up 6 and 6. Here's the biggest thing I've noticed with GH. If you're taking enough of it, it works regardless of when you take it.
Exactly.
That's the theme, right? Because I've done, like Paul said, I've tried every different, dosing mechanism and mode to get it in, and I think my very, very best was I was taking a bottle of Serostim right after training every day. And, I blew up and everything was going great, Would it have been different if I would have broken it up 9-9 and done 9 fasted, 9 before bed, or 9 fasted, 9 post-workout, or even 9 pre-workout. Everyone has their, I guess, superstitions on when to take it, but I think the bottom line is just take it, get it in consistently.
GH, what it does, it stimulates HSL, hormone-sensitive lipase, so you do get increased lipotic effect. It frees up triglycerides to be burned while you're taking it, and it also limits LPL, so you have this dual effect of it where it actually blocks fat storage and increases the liberation of fatty acids while you're on it. But that's also why guys get high glucose levels too, because you're shifted towards lipid metabolism and not glucose metabolism. So it's sort of like a temporary effect of I guess glucose insensitivity specifically insulin insensitivity specifically in the fat cells. And that's why you can kind of play with it. Like if you're playing with insulin with GH, you can force, especially if you're lifting, you can force glycogen synthesis while you're limiting fat storage. But long term, you might make yourself a diabetic doing that. So that's the downside of it.
But did you get huge and ripped? I mean, let's keep our priorities.
You get huge, right?
Guys. I mean, no, and you make a good point right there, Paul, because that question, Andrew, I don't know if you remember, but that question came up and I posed it to you a few weeks ago. I'm like, we got to bring this up on the show because a lot of people, I don't know if it was just a cycle, but, and when I say cycle, like a trend, where I was getting asked a lot about the timing of insulin dosing versus GH, and essentially the idea that if you take them too close together at the same time, that it's like they cancel each other out.
See, I think I went the other way with that, though. I feel like there's more synergy taking them fairly close together in terms of, excuse me, insulin will help translocate IGF-1 receptors. So if you're taking the GH, you're getting your liver to produce IGF-1, more translocation, easier attachment to the receptor. So I see the benefit of putting them close together. Not necessarily.
And I agree with you, but then it begs the question: where did the protocol, call it antiquated if you want, it's been around for a long time, there's a 15-minute gap between. I did it. I mean, I went along with that guideline too of 15 minutes and then hit the insulin, almost implying there's this window. Don't go screwing it up. Don't cross that line because then they're going to cancel each other out. I think we sometimes need to be careful as trainers and people who, I hate to say influence, but people who influence other people without calling ourselves influencers with the things that we say, because they can be taken so literally black and white when we're not really saying that it's black and white. We're just giving parameters, and then the people or the perception is, oh, this has to be, this is what it is because so and so said this. It's like, well, we're just giving you parameters. There's just guidelines here. So,
well, I think if you look back at pros that started using heavy GH and insulin in the early '90s, and then look at pros in the 2000s, and then looked at people today. And I say pros because back then I feel like it was only pros that really had access to growth hormone and insulin. I didn't know a lot of local guys, when I was coming up in the 90s and early 2000s that were blasting those two peptides. There's a lot of different protocols, and they all got huge and ripped, and every method worked. Whether it's, I take my GH before and I take my insulin with a bunch of carbs after training, or even reversing it and taking, insulin and intra-carbs and taking your GH post. It all works,
I think
Hormones work.
guys, I think the bros heard that insulin and GH are counter-regulatory, which is true, but, insulin's going to promote nutrient storage. GH is going to promote liberation of fatty acids, but specifically in our situation, like if we're taking insulin pre-workout and we're lifting, we're going to promote GLUT4 transport, and you can block lipolysis at the same time. That's why guys get lean while they're taking GH, and you can kind of force the issue with glycogen storage while you're working out. And if you're pairing it up with, kind of like Milo Sarchev style, like the high volume training that he does and slamming a bunch of carbs and taking insulin around the workout, there seems to be some sort of super compensatory effect that happens with glycogen synthesis. And then you're also limiting limiting lipogenesis through the effects of GH and how it limits lipogenesis. So it's kind of like, the end result is you get fuller and you have less fat storage on top of it. So it's kind of a...
I would add to that too by adding injectable carnitine to the mix. Just amplifies that even more too, with enhanced glycogen retention and increased fatty acid utilization at other times.
But ultimately, I think for us, like in an off season, like for the way I look at it with GH, there's different purposes for it. Like I look at it, the use of it differently on off season than I do for contest prep. Really for like off season, ultimately what we're looking for is the elevated IGF-1 levels, right? Because we want to increase mTOR, lower AMPK, and then increase hypertrophy. So really, like a single bolus dose is really all you need during the off season. We're not too concerned. I am worried about guys getting their blood sugars and A1C too high in the off season and creating insulin resistance as well. So that's kind of like my logic, my long-winded answer, and believe me, I've thought about this a lot.
So we talked about splitting it up through the day or not. What about days on versus days off? He has 60 units, so if he split that up every day, that comes out to like 8.5 units per day over 7 days. Would you guys do 7 days a week, or would you say do it on training days or a specific setup?
I'm every day.
Yeah, I run it every day, but then there is an argument where if you take a bigger dose that you might get a bigger IGF-1 spike. I have seen that compelling argument too, like sort of the whole 18 units of Serostem before bed. That's why they dose it that way, because you get more of a anabolic effect from it, from taking the higher dose, single bolus dose. So I know the old school guys used to run it 5 day. Was it 5 on 2 off, like Dorian Yates and those dudes? But I think that was mostly because they were limited by budget. But
right. Yeah,
I don't know. I think once you get north of 10 units, it kind of becomes a moot point.
And how much fluctuation is there with IGF levels once you're peaked out? I just really don't see that. So when I say I use it every day, I don't know that it would matter if I went 3 on 1 off, 5 on 2 off. You're not getting much fluctuation once you're at those peaks.
The only compelling reason I could see for taking some days off would be to prevent insulin resistance, if you're just trying to give yourself a break in that aspect.
Particularly in the off season, I think,
Yeah, like if you were doing some sort of carb cycling or caloric cycling, maybe it would make sense not to take it on your low day. Because IGF-1 production is going to be lower when insulin and carbs are lower too. So that's a possibility. It's just a fat burner on those low days. So I don't know. I'm just thinking abstractly, but long story short, I take it every fucking day.
Exactly.
I think we're all kind of in the same agreement there.
Single bolus every day on the off season. Long story short, break it up into a couple doses on contest prep if you're trying to burn fat.
And you know what? For fun, let me piggyback off that and just ask you, Paul. You said you break it up into a couple doses. That's what I'm doing. What's your timing? What's all of our timing for those 2 doses?
Well,
what do you prefer?
If you look at the active life on it, it's 6 to 8 hours. But the way I structure my meals when I'm on prep, usually it's first 4 meals are no carbs, then I work out in the evening, and I have my carbohydrate meals. So I take it in the morning, and then I take it at night when I'm in a low carb state to increase lipolysis, and then I kind of yank it out before my workout, and then use that as an opportunity to promote glycogen synthesis. So that's sort of my thought process. Now, you could break it up. I've heard guys break it up into 3 doses pre-workout morning before bed. That might make more sense because it's active for about 6 to 8 hours, somewhere in that range, depending on how your body metabolizes it. So if you wanted it present for the fat burning effects all day long, probably 3 doses would make the most sense.
Just curious. I run mine when I wake and then prior to training because it ends up being about 8 hours later. And I'm not a pre-bed. I've talked about it before. I can't do pre-bed because it messes with my sleep horribly bad.
Really?
My sleep quality goes to crap.
I get better sleep.
And I've heard that from other people too. And I think that's why that part I think is individual. It just wrecks mine. It'll chop 2/3 of my REM and deep sleep out.
Yeah, I'm the exact opposite. I sleep like a baby when I take it at night.
And I've heard that. I'd like that. I mean, I sleep like a baby anyway. I've never had sleep issues, thankfully. Sleep issues in my life.
Yeah,
Even
my
as
sleep
I sleep
sucks.
very, very well.
What about
My wife
IM
hates it.
versus sub-Q? I had always done it IM, thinking like, oh, I'm going to get my levels up higher this way. And then I hear, hey, maybe sub-Q might be more beneficial. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to Kurt quite extensively about that. I mean, he did a lot of research on GH, and from what I understand, that there's some concern that that the peptide itself might get ruined or damaged by enzymes actually in the muscle tissue. And that the drug was designed to be administered subcutaneously.
Are you telling me I might have cut off all my gains? I spent a lot of money for nothing.
Potentially. Now, you will get it's going to be metabolized quicker, right? So you're going to have a quicker, higher peak. It's going to be in and out faster. But, I mean, the way the drug, if you look at the insert packet on Serostem, it says administered pre-bed in a single bolus. That's the way the drug was designed initially to be used for.
But in defense of that, it was also designed primarily for kids who weren't
HIV
growing.
patients. Yeah.
Not
they also
exactly
tell you to throw it
the
out.
same.
They also tell you to throw the
that's
extra
true
out.
too. Yeah,
We all do that, right?
Yeah, definitely.
You
Definitely.
don't need that.
I'm recalling a conversation with Scott Stevenson a couple years ago that I had about, all right, let's just say the same example, 60 units of GH. And the theme was like, well, why not just divide it into 2 doses that week and take like a bolus 30 dose on Monday and another 30 unit dose on Thursday. And I can't remember the exact, but I think like the results are about the same based off like literature. And obviously underweight kids aren't, lifting heavy ass weights and eating tons of food and doing what we do. But I think in the studies versus daily versus, once 2 week bolus dosing, they're about the same.
For what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we think about it, if the IGF-1 levels are raised for 36 to 48 hours, you could probably get away with taking it a couple times a week. You're not going to get the lipotic effect from it, the fat-burning effect that we're looking for.
Talking strictly growth.
We're talking strictly for hypertrophy or growth or sparing muscle wasting as in HIV, how they use it for anti-catabolic effects. But it's a good question, though.
How about this
Sorry
one?
for the long-winded answer.
That's good. That's what we're here for. If you're in the market for protein powder, check out TrueNutrition.com. They literally have like every protein powder under the sun. I go with their cold filtered whey isolate or their Team Skip blend. I prefer the chocolate peanut butter cup, but there's a few flavors that I like. Let me know if you have any questions about that. Victoria, my wife, she gets the pea protein isolate. It's rare to find a pea isolate. Most of them are concentrate, so the isolate is super low in carbs. Regardless of your diet, they will have a protein powder for you, and you get to flavor it how you want and buy it by however pounds you want. So check them out, TrueNutrition.com. They're the first company that ever supported our podcasting, so we support them. You can support us by shopping with True Nutrition and using our code THINK. How about this one? And we're 10 days late on it. He said, emergency question. So 10 days later, we're answering, and this one will come out for like another day or so. He says, I'm coming toward the end of a blast. About 20 weeks, made insane progress, but I'm starting to lose strength. Diet and training hasn't changed. Could it be overtraining? I tried taking a deload and it did nothing. I don't want to come off cycle until I gain back my peak strength to maintain during my cruise. What do you guys think of this one?
Well, I think number one, it doesn't qualify as an emergency, so there's that.
It's a muscle emergency, man.
Yeah, just a little cheap shot.
Muscle. It depends on your perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
It's gains, bro.
Is this dude a power lifter or a bodybuilder?
It's got to be a bodybuilder, I would assume. I'm guessing.
Probably a gym bro.
Yep.
Yeah, probably a gym bro.
I mean, to me, it's like if your body's giving you signals, it's had enough. It's had enough. And at this point, you're probably wasting drugs, you're wasting calories, and you're wasting energy getting from overtraining or overreaching into overtraining. And like you want to be a little greedy, but you don't want to stretch it till the wheels fall off when it comes to blasting off season. I would rather quit a little early and get into rest period in a surplus of energy, growth potential, less fatigue, etc. Be able to take that deload and cruise, and then be able to get right back into it in 6 to 8 weeks and hit it hard again. That's just me.
Yeah.
When do you guys usually see that the wheels start to fall off with an off season?
Like week wise, or like in terms of
week wise.
I think it depends on where it started too. You know what I mean? Like how lean was the person?
A lot of variables.
Yeah.
How lean? What other stressors are in their life?
What about even for ourselves? Because I know myself, I proactively deload. I think I'm one of the few. Do you? Okay.
I don't program anything in. If I wake up and I'm like 2 days in a row and I'm like, I'm not feeling it this week, I just won't go to the gym, you know?
Yeah, but that's a little bit more reactive. I mean, I will literally force myself at the 6-7 week, even if I'm feeling like $1 million, and I preach this to my clients too. Proactive deloading will always have you come back in a better position. It's just hard to do psychologically because you're like, oh, I can get another week, I can get another 2 weeks. Once you step into once you step into that reactive mode, at least in my experience, then the hole that I have dug is just a little bit too big. Proactively, then I always come back stronger. That was my argument when I said, I'm doing this every other week training. I've said it for years. I'm tired of taking a week off, and then I come back and I feel like $1 million. So when I take them proactively, that always happens. And the vast majority of the time, it happens with clients too. But we tend to do them reactively. Not that it's bad, but sometimes when you take them reactively, you don't come out of that cruise necessarily at 100%. So that's my argument for the proactive. You can't lose, I guess is what I'm saying. Even if things are going great and you're like, oh, I can ride this a couple more weeks. The only time that I think, okay, it's probably a good idea is if you know something's coming up in a couple weeks where you're going to not be able to train, then I can see extending it a little bit because you know that you're going to have that time. But my boring life with no kids or anything else anymore, I don't get that. I go on vacation to see the kids. I'm still training. It's the same boring life no matter where, no matter the demographic or what I'm doing.
I usually see the wheels fall off somewhere in that 16 to 20 week range. It seems, at least for me. I mean, that's about the maximum I can push, and that's what I've seen with my clients with the drugs, the food, the PEDs, and like you said, Skip, if you program in some deloads in there, I can probably get. I remember. It's funny because Dante was doing deloads before deloads were cool. I remember when he was training me back in the early 2000s. it was every 5th week there was a deload. Yeah, it was 4 weeks of blasting, I remember, and then that 5th week was a deload, and then I could get probably 3 of those blocks in before I needed like a break. Like at least that's what I've noticed now, and it's like I what I've seen too is like it's weird with the strength. It's like when I pull back and go on cruise, I don't know if you guys have noticed this. Like a lot of times my strength will start going back up.
Yeah,
when I go back on a cruise.
We've talked about that recently too. Like there might be a point with this guy that it's like just too much. Who knows? He might get stronger coming off, right?
Well, the inflammation is what Andrew and I were talking about, because I have a similar thing where every time I go TRT, I swear my progress is better in the gym. I feel better. The strength is up. The weights don't feel very heavy. That's probably the first 6 weeks of TRT, and then it kind of levels off.
It's funny to say that, because I've been 3 weeks on 15 milligrams of test a day, and what does that work out to? 70, like 105. Is that right? 105 milligrams a week, and my strength is right there, if not even a little bit better over the last 2 or 3 weeks. So
yeah, it's wild. That's what I've always seen too. So it makes you wonder if it's not toxicity of the drugs.
I always say toxicity.
Or maybe just the central nervous system is overtaxed from all the androgens. That's a possibility too, or all of the above.
The other thing is
Training,
that the body does sense in a lot of ways PEDs as a foreign invader, and that's why a lot of guys have immune responses. We've all heard of test flu, right? I think there's extreme cases of that, right, where a guy takes 400 or 500 milligrams of test a week and he actually has like those crazy flu-like symptoms. But I do think there is a very immunosuppressive effect on varying levels for all of us based off of PED loads. And maybe it doesn't exhibit itself as the flu-like symptoms, but fatigue and lethargy and poor digestion, more inflammation, all those different markers.
And it builds slowly. It's kind of a frog in the boiling water metaphor, where you don't see it until you finally realize, oh shit, like I'm not in a very good spot right now.
I was talking to Dr. Dean St. Mart about it, and he brought up an interesting perspective that I never really considered when you're pushing anabolics really hard for a long time. Is he talked about that you'll see guys like initially like they can handle it, their blood work doesn't go south, things hold up, but after a long period of time, everybody ends up where their blood markers start to go south. And he speculated that your body, when you're pushing super physiological doses of stuff, eating a lot of food and training hard, that all of your stem cell resources are being used for hypertrophy rather than repairing organs. And that you have to pull back. You have to pull back the food. You have to pull back the training. You have to pull back the PEDs for a period of time to true TRT, maybe like a 6, 8 week, 12 week period of time, and let your body recover and let that stem cell pool recover so that your organs can regenerate and repair themselves. I'd never really considered or thought about that, but that was kind of a interesting thought.
I think that's why it's important that we have people who are smart, educated, academia, in the industry as well. It makes for a good combination, because that, I agree with you, that's not even something that I would have. I mean, that's way over here, and then Skip is over here.
I'm medium smart. I'm in the middle somewhere. Bro smart.
Right.
Ooh, body fat percentages. How do a lot of these gym bros, look at themselves and say that they have so-and-so body fat level? My gym bud has a decent six-pack, and he says he's around 10 to 12% body fat. Do they actually know what they are looking at to determine this?
No.
How many times have you guys had a client come to you and tell you they're 12% body fat and they got to lose 50 pounds on prep?
Yeah. That's such a fact. It's
and 90% of them say 10 to 12. The other 10 is 12 to 15, when really you can sometimes you can literally double it. 90% of the time.
Yeah, just add 10% to whatever they say, and that's probably where they are.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not usually very close. I think what is it? Is it just I think, and I don't mean this, in a bad way, but it's kind of just ignorance to understanding what a percentage a body fat looks like. You're going to look
what it is?
damn good at 10%.
Because I've had someone send me, there's like a meme or an image on Google search of like what 10% looks like, what 5% looks like, what, you know what I mean? Yeah. I think they're kind of compared, but they're only seeing like the good stuff, and they're not remembering, oh wait, I still got the love handles, or I have my glutes and hams don't have any lines. It's just one straight piece of meat going down, you know? But how about one other thing? Do you guys get people that send you the in-body scans?
Oh God. Oh God,
terrible.
Please don't.
And I'm just like, hey, I don't even look at these. I'm sorry. Like, first off, it's a flawed mechanism for calculating your body fat. It's based off of an estimation for one thing, and secondarily, what does it matter what your body fat is? If we're in a prep, like. Yeah. It matters what you look like on. You don't bring a card that says I reached 4.2% body fat. You know, the only person I know that actually checked their body fat with hydrostatic weighing was John Meadows when he was like 3.3% back in 2000. Yeah. Okay. Ooh. So like when if he was measured in a university setting, hydrostatic weighing at 3.3. And I'm like, you don't look anything like him, bro. like, yeah, you got your abs and you got some glute lines, but your skin is not translucent like his is when you shine a light through it. You're probably more like 5.1 or 4.9 maybe.
I don't think people realize how lean 10% is.
Yeah, I completely
You're not far from being stage ready.
You look damn good at 10%. Yeah. Okay, so let's piggyback off that. Let me ask you guys, what do you think the average person is from a body fat percentage on stage when they're in really good, like they're just peaked and wow, that not like the most shredded guy on the stage, but the average person?
Probably about 5.2, 5.3.
I would have said 6. Same thing. 6. High fives, low sixes.
Right around 5 to 6.
Yeah. I get my guys to get DEXA scans at the beginning of prep and at the end, and I always do. Now who knows how fucking accurate a DEXA scan is, but like I always like 6 to 7 always looks decent. On a DEXA scan. I've been as low as the high 4s on a DEXA, and I've been like last year I was right at 6 when I got on stage on a DEXA.
Yeah.
So just again, I'm going to piggyback. Which look was better on stage as far as fullness, just overall total
6.
package? I'm betting I'd have put $1 million on the 6.
Yeah. The 6 was a better look.
Yeah,
way better look.
We all want to be shredded. We all go after that.
They want to put a number on it too. Do you know what I mean? Like we're looking for like something tangible. I'm this percent and I want to get to this percent. Or I weigh, you see people who are like, hey, I weigh this much. My goal is, I'm going to look good at this weight. This is my goal. I'm going to be 200 pounds.
Let me correct you though. They don't weigh this. They're sitting at.
Oh, thank you.
No one ever says I weigh. They say I'm sitting.
Sitting at 220 right now.
Yeah, sitting at 250.
Everybody severely overestimates how much muscle they have, and they underestimate how fat they are. In my experience,
wait,
everybody thinks they're
at 250.
Sitting at 250.
I was always the opposite. I always underestimated the other way. Whenever I'd send pictures to John, I'd be like, I'm probably fat as fuck right now. I'm probably 20%.
Well, keeps you working hard. That's why you were successful.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, I honestly, it's like, you're only fooling yourself, right? When you make statements like that, like, because everyone else is like, what? Like if you're a coach and you get something when someone's saying they're 10%, you're like, bro, you're clearly 17 to 19, maybe even 20%. Like, so. Yeah. So it's only playing a game where now I have to convince you right now that you're going to have to work a lot harder than you think you do, because we're not going to show up at 10 minus 4% of what you think 10% is. Sorry,
Yeah.
Can I tell you something about a DEXA that blew my mind?
What's that?
What's that?
I tested at a percentage about a year and a half ago that I literally laughed at. Always thought the DEXA was incredibly reliable, arguably the best practical measure or the most accurate measure that you could get. And the body fat level came to, and I'm like, I'm not that lean. And she's like, oh no, you definitely. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll come back, because they only let you take, at least this place, only let you take a DEXA because they consider it an X-ray every 3 months. So I went to a different place about 3 weeks later, and I had to literally beg them to do the DEXA on my stomach. Almost 4% different.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
And I knew it. I say I knew it. I had a really good idea because I think we all know, I didn't think this when I was younger. I was like, oh, this is bullshit. That doesn't make any sense. But typically as we age, the body fat, you don't carry body fat evenly from the front to the back. I was always lean as hell from the back. And now I can be damn near ready from the front, and I'm nowhere near ready from the back.
That's the way I carry
Almost
it,
4% different in that 3 weeks.
Yeah.
That's pretty substantial. That blew it right there for me. I'm like, well, don't know how accurate that. Now, clearly it would probably still be accurate with all things being equal, the same variables. If I were to always be on my back and I see those numbers come, it's like a scale, weight scale that's off by 4 pounds. It's still going to read accurately from that first read. So you're either progressing up or down. But it's still, at the end of the day, it's not an accurate weight on the scale, and it's not an accurate assessment of body fat, at least in my situation. Now, it was a different DEXA. It could be argued that it was calibrated differently. I get that. But almost 4%, no. I don't think that's a very good margin of error there.
Well, they have from what I understand, it's a plus or minus 2% either direction margin of error. So there could be a 4%. Yeah, either direction. Yep, plus or minus.
That's larger than I would have thought.
Yeah,
on
really?
DEXA.
And hydration.
I would have thought.
Not just
hydration.
That.
Well, I mean, who knows if that's accurate? But hydration also affects it too.
Yeah, and not just that stuff, but it's not as accurate as we like to think. Because I remember we had this. Do you guys remember when Ronnie Coleman did that interview with Joe Rogan and he said I was negative 2%, and everybody like just 2%. Completely went off on him, and they're like, "That's impossible. You would be dead," and all this. And recording with Scott Stevenson at the time, he broke down how the DEXA works, and he had said he was like, the reality is it's still going to be a flawed measurement. He explained why. I couldn't repeat it. It was several years ago now, and he had mentioned he's like the only way. And scientifically, the only true accurate measurement we can get is if we dissected you. It's the only way we could know for sure.
Yep.
Where can we get that done?
Put you in a meeting.
Somebody was listening going, is that possible? Oh, no, can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, the DEXA is going to be the closest affordable thing. The hydrostatic tank or an MRI is probably going to be the most accurate, but even still, there's a margin of error. Yeah, so just take it with a grain of salt. Ultimately, the pictures are what matters, right?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, but to answer the kid's question, no, your buddy's kind of blowing smoke.
Yeah.
Yes.
Took us a minute to get there, but that's okay. We'll get to the answer.
I think people were interested in hearing about body fat and real calculation or real visual calculations from coaches that look at people's body fat all day.
And the take-home point of don't use the in-body scan, Skip. Right? That I've had people.
Sucks.
They're at usually it's like a Gen Pop person and they're at their gym and somebody cons them into it. They're like, oh, you're doing really good. You want to do an in-body scan? And they get them, the trainer at my gym is going to have me weigh in every week now. He says I'm doing such a good job. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. And
for
then
$40
you get the message. Or they're fishing for a client, And you get the message all of a sudden, oh my God, we have to change something. I've lost 5 pounds of muscle and I've gained 3 pounds of fat. And how did this happen since Monday?
Well, hey, the new scales that use BEI. It doesn't get any more outdated than that. Yeah. So, people ask me all the time, and not in the industry, but friends and family, hey, what scale should I get? One that just tells you what you weigh, because everything else is a giant waste of money.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Question for the next show from Lightweight Baby. He says he's planning on doing test decanoate, Deca, and EQ. Plans to start 100 milligrams of each compound. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So taking a total of 300 milligrams each weekly. Is this a good ratio? I have used these compounds before, but never together. In an experiment with EQ, I once ran 800 milligrams along with 200 milligrams of test to see what it did to EQ, and it tested at 9 PG. Normally on 200 test with nothing else, my estradiol sits at 40. So EQ does have some effect on my estradiol. Just that info might help with your answer.
Are you married? Do you like to have sex? Does your wife or girlfriend like to have sex? That's going to matter.
Let's go test Deca. Who the hell uses that?
Yeah. That's the first thing I thought of.
Such a bizarre cycle.
Yeah.
I would also say, well, I guess I would ask the guy what your goals are. Are you just trying to dabble a little bit, I guess? Like, to me, that's not TRT, but it's also like
it's
not
it's
really
300 tests. No, it's not. Never mind. Sorry,
300 tests, 300
I did the
EQ,
math
300
wrong.
Deca.
Yeah, I thought for some reason it was 300 each 3 times a week. That would be a cycle, but never mind.
That's what I'd get. I was actually going to be like, if you want to really, see what these compounds can do, I would do 300 of each Monday, Wednesday, Friday versus 100 milligrams.
Now we're talking.
Especially if he's coming from, I used to run, 200 tests and 800 EQ. It's like, okay, so you're someone that's probably used to running some decent milligram cycles. I don't think you're gonna see what you want out of 300 of each, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's just 100 of each Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
It's a cruise unless you're running a gram.
There's an honest statement. Double the test. Let the Deca and the EQ make up roughly 50% of the rest of it.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, that's
and it's kind of spin the wheel with Deca anymore, whether or not your dick's going to work.
For sure.
We always get somebody in the comments though. They're like, "Oh, I do Deca only all the time, and it works great." There's always that one guy.
That.
We're so happy for you.
I've been married for 33 years. My wife hasn't had to step out yet. I'm not going to give her a reason. That doesn't mean she hasn't. I'm just saying I haven't given her a reason. But
all right, we had some stuff in the stream here. Gamboni Law, our favorite lawyer who watches the show, he says, great show, guys. Any thoughts on adding DIM and berberine to my vitamin stack during the summer with TRT if you are already 10% body fat? And he might be a legit 10%.
I know.
Yeah, we're going to beat him up.
He might be a
He
legit
thinks
10%.
he's 10%. He's 18.
Yeah. He's lean. He's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know if I'm ever in any legal trouble, I'm calling this cat. He's a good dude.
Yeah.
I guess I would ask him, what is the reasoning that he's thinking he wants to add him in? Berberine's usually a staple in most of my plans anyway, especially if someone's pushing food in any capacity and for other health benefits as well. But is he trying to maybe put on a little bit more mass and he's going to push his food a little harder? Is he concerned about his estrogen and his estrogen recycling in the liver for the DIM? I guess I would ask him. I guess I would want to see what are you taking, and then are you using any AIs with it? Where's your blood sugar at regularly? That kind of just some more information because I'm a kind of guy I don't give a blanket list of supplements that everybody has to take because I don't want people wasting money if they don't need to waste money.
Yeah.
And so I guess I would want to know a little bit more information and I guess in this case using Skip's example, I'm reactive to what their labs and what their feedback is in terms of the supplementation. It's not just here's a blanket list of 20 things, start taking them.
Yeah. Do you guys think DIM actually does anything? I've never noticed that it makes much of a difference.
In men, no.
No.
In women, maybe.
A little bit in women.
Yeah.
And especially I found with natural, bikini competitors, girls who aren't taking anything, I've seen a benefit there.
Okay.
But not to the point where I would say oh man, we got to get our hand. It's not a game changer kind of thing.
Yeah. And I wonder if he's natural, because that may be more and if he's a true 10%, here's a
he
question
said
for you.
with TRT.
Oh, TRT. Okay, I missed it. My apologies. If he's a true 10% and he's not pushing size, I don't care if you use berberine. You're probably quite insulin sensitive at that point anyway if it's a true 10%. So if you're maintaining condition, there may be this thought of, maybe I'll be a little drier. Maybe it'll help a little bit with estrogen. I'll get a little crisper look. I won't hold as much water. Not going to hurt. But I don't see a huge benefit there. And I don't see the benefit of berberine unless he's pushing. I don't think it's bad, but at the same time, I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, you got to be careful with berberine too, because sometimes it can jack up your stomach too. There is that too. Sometimes guys will get diarrhea, explosive diarrhea from berberine. I've had a few situations where that's happened.
You guys feel that people treat it as more of an innocuous supplement than, I don't want to say than it is, but than it is. It's certainly not bad, but like it's just how I'll put it in there. It's almost like an insurance. I call it an insurance supplement.
I think you get that with a lot of over-the-counter supplements, though. You know.
Yep. True.
Well, guys are proactively taking things for stuff that they probably don't need to proactively take them for.
Yeah.
I do like some berberine in there for, if you're running growth hormone and eating a shit ton of carbs to keep some insulin sensitivity in check. But, probably for the dude on TRT, just working out, just the gym bro, probably unnecessary, to be honest with you. Probably both of them are unnecessary. And if you're having estrogen issues, just take an AI.
Yeah.
Just that.
There is, but yet at the same time.
Or some Primo.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was going to say take a DHT.
Rather do that, yeah.
If you can find it, have you guys heard of it from your resources about Primo still not being available, or what's? Because I'm not paying attention. Primo, I hear, was not available, hard to find.
The Primo's back, but Masteron is more expensive than Primo right now.
Really? Okay.
That's
interesting. So I'm sitting on a gold mine. Is what you're telling me.
I was going to say.
Everybody's made the run for Masteron.
Yeah. What do I do now?
I think that's because of the Primo shortage, and then everyone's like, okay, I'm going to switch to Mast, and so everyone overbought Mast and stocked up, and now they're just a little bit of a shortage of Masteron. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
I can see what I was thinking.
John Jewett's all the time talking about Masteron too, so I think a lot of people were on his protocols. Chase, all those guys. Masteron was pretty popular last year in the test Mast GH combo. So guys tend to follow what everybody else is doing, it seems like. I remember, Skip, you're old enough, man. You remember when Masteron was considered a shit steroid?
Oh, yeah.
Nobody would take it. Like, why are you taking that? That's what girls take.
I had it on that list too. I was like, man, it's useless.
Yeah, Primo too. People were like, no.
Primo had its run of being the worthless drug for a while, and then it just turned out people weren't taking enough of it.
Well, I remember back in the day, it was like you had to take 700 to a gram to get anything out of Primo. That was the thought. It's interesting how things have changed now. We did a podcast recently about like low dose compounds, and people were, Dave and I did this, and we, threw out some really low doses, but I expected this. People even were like, oh, you think that's low? No, you should be taking, 50 Deca. I've been making fantastic progress with 50 Deca a week. And I'm like, okay.
Well, placebos work sometimes.
True. There's that. It was a good podcast though. Like we got a lot of views on what's the lowest dose, the lowest effective dose. We had a guy in the stream who says, and I asked him how much he took. Asked him how much he took. He didn't. I don't think he got back to us yet, but he has said, I took a lot of Retatrutide and I started throwing up. Why was this?
What would you guys consider a lot of Reta?
Well, if you look at the phase 2 clinical trials, they went up to 12 milligrams.
Yeah.
That's a spicy dose.
Yeah.
I haven't gone up from 1.75. Exactly. I'm like
1.75. Yeah, that's about where I've been. I'm going to 2 now.
Yeah, I was running a milligram every 5th day, and then I went up to 2, and it was too much, and I back down to a milligram every 5th day.
I'm going to say, I think the trend is 1.5 to 2 milligrams is great for bodybuilders. That's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm using with people. I think more becomes overkill, and let's say less for most people doesn't really do much of anything. Like if you're trying to stick to less than 1 milligram a week. But I'm finding that 1.5 to 2 milligram is like that sweet spot for most people.
I can agree with that.
Yeah.
We got asked recently about filling out, trying to fill back out while on Reta. What have you guys experienced with that?
I get full as fuck.
You what?
I get full as fuck.
You
but I'm able, with my dose, to be able to push 900, 1,100, 1,200 grams of carbs, on a high day. So I think if my dosage were higher and I was limited on the volume of food, cool. It's just a really good balance. If it were higher, I probably would struggle to get that in.
I've seen people have a hard time keeping full on it. It seems like it flattens people out.
Yep. Tirzepatide did that to me, at a very low dose, and so I pulled it. But if we're talking like a bodybuilder trying to carb up for a show and present, I would pull it probably 10 days out personally.
Well, I mean, it is a glucagon agonist, which is going to affect glycogen synthesis. In theory, only with the liver, but I mean, so that is something of a concern. Wow. Well, I mean, if you're eating enough carbs and taking insulin, then you probably can force the issue.
True. Yeah, exactly. Because after, I mean, 2 meals in, I'm like, wow.
Yeah. I've kept my carbs really low, and I got super flat to the. Put it this way, I'll be more sensitive than anybody else looking at me, and I'll be like, oh man, I look really small right now. You know what I mean? And I'm walking around, and I'll say that to like my wife, and she'll be like, no, you look fine. I can't tell the difference. But it was at the point where she was like, you know what? You're looking small right now. So if she said it, that meant, and I could see it too. I was like, oh yeah, no, I know. She saw it. And that's when a little bit after that, because I realized I'm not filling out. So I backed the dose down, figured out how to fill out, and I needed insulin with that too to make it work. But now we'll see. I'm going to try to push back up, see what happens.
I mean, I don't know how you guys are handling it, but on prep, if I have guys run it and I'm yanking it 2 weeks out.
That's what I'm saying.
That makes sense for like filling out for a show.
Now,
absolutely.
You also got to tell the person like, hey, be ready to get hit with a wave of hunger. Like a lot of people, it hits them like a wave, and they're like, I want to cheat. I want to eat everything. Like it's like this. The noise has been like dulled, and then all of a sudden you just put these like high quality speakers in their ear, and they're like, I want to eat everything, man.
Yeah, I put it back in on the post show.
Yeah, that's a great time to put it back in.
Yeah.
Well,
my doctor just.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, my doctor just put me on Manjaro, so we'll see how that goes.
Okay. Stefan had said it wasn't for me. He said, what did he say there? He said he took 0.5 milligrams of Retta, and life was hell for a week. Hiccups, burps, nausea, threw up twice, and diarrhea. Whew. I hadn't heard that literally from anybody at dosing like that. Have you guys?
I mean, some people are just super sensitive.
I had one client that got really sick. Yeah. I mean, if you look at the phase 2 clinical trials, there was a small percentage, I think it was 5 to 10%, I don't recall the exact number, that got really massive gastric symptoms, like throwing up, diarrhea. There was some issues with skin sensitivity too, like guys would report their skin burning.
Heard about that.
Yeah, there's some other strange side effects. I didn't, honestly, other than the sulfur burps and sulfur farts when I first started it, and that went away. A little bit of acid reflux and some elevated pulse, but that went away after a couple weeks. Then it settled down. I didn't really have any problem with it.
I get a lot of people reporting that it makes them, how should I say,
constipated?
More solid. Not necessarily solid, but if you are loose, solid.
Like in bed?
No, you're doo-doo. You're dookie.
Oh, yeah. That's what I've noticed. I was
trying to stay away from that.
I've had to up my protocol with magnesium and stuff to keep things regular.
Well, I mean, it's going to slow gastric emptying, so that would make sense.
Yeah.
So that's potential. And I've noticed actually, because I have IBS-D, the opposite problem.
You got all the stuff, man.
Dude, I'm all fucked up. I'm old and fucked up. It's amazing. I look back and I'm like, how the fuck did I get my pro card with all the shit that I have going on? I just ignore all the health problems and just push through everything like a true bro. But I've noticed like it actually helped my digestive issues when I got on it, because probably the slow gastric emptying helped me out. And then like I speculate, because my diabetes is pancreatic insufficiency is what I have. I have a type 1B, so I suspect that a lot of guys that are older bodybuilders maybe have pancreatic insufficiency, and a lot of the digestive issues that they have is from lack of pancreatic function, and then you aren't making enough digestive enzymes, and possibly the effects of the Retatrutide on how it increases pancreatic function could potentially increase digestive enzyme production. I don't, just speculation. This is me.
I know I have better
my bro logic.
Well, when we speculate like that, and then like 5 years later, there's going to come a research study that comes out that confirms it. I mean, how many times have you had ideas about a compound or a drug, and you're like, this is probably why this is doing this, and then someone did a research study, and you're like, confirmed.
Yep.
you know.
I mean, that's bodybuilding, right?
Exactly. I think I always tell people, like, bodybuilders are like 5 to 10 years ahead of like science. Even if they're a drug that pharmaceutical companies have developed, their true actions and side effects and all the different benefits, like, bodybuilders have experienced that 100 times over, and it's a known thing in our community.
But if you tell somebody that outside of the community, they will laugh mockingly.
They used to, but I think they're like, because I'll talk to people. I talk to my parents about stuff. Like, with all my dad has a lot of autoimmune issues, and I put him on a whole bunch of different things that have helped. And like, he was like, "Well, I ran these by my doctor," and the doctor's like, "You don't know what you're talking about." I'm like, "Well, they're supposed to say that because that's the track that they were taught,
Because
and it's
they don't know what they're talking
well,
about.
exactly, you know." And I'm like, respectfully, I'm not saying they're stupid. I'm just saying that, like, they don't look at things the same way bodybuilders and coaches do in general on different applications of things. And sure enough, now, like, the doctors approve. How about something as simple as this? How many years, 10 years ago, we all started using BPC 157, right? And the medical community had no idea about it. And I remember when I partially tore my bicep, and I'm going in and I'm telling the doctor what I'm doing with BPC, GH, and TB, and all the other stuff. And he was like, "What? What are these things?" And then I pulled up 3 or 4 research papers, and he's like, "Why don't I know about this? I'm a surgeon, and I help people get better. Like, why don't I know about this stuff?" And I'm like, bodybuilding's like 5, 10 years ahead of everything, dude. And so he had me keep on consulting with him and sending him stuff. And he's like, "I'm bringing this to my practice."
That's
so
cool.
Yeah, and now, I mean, every clinic in the world is talking about BPC 157. So
Yep.
Well, if they're progressive and they're not 60-year-old white doctors stuck.
why do you say white?
Yeah, it's an old white guy thing. We get stuck in our ways.
Hey, speaking of BPC, that's a great segue. Let's talk about your surgery, your recovery, Paul. What's going on with all that, man?
Well, it's plenty of pizza, as I mentioned earlier. No, I taught it. This was hilarious, man. When I went in to do my surgery, or when I went in to do the consult before the surgery, the doctor looked at me and he goes, "I know you." And he's like, "I saw you on a podcast with Dr. Mike Israetel," and I'm like, "Yep, that was me." Yeah, so I'm like, "All right, well, I know you're down with what we do."
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a big plus.
Yeah. So if he's watching Vigorous Steve and watching Dr. Mike, he knows stuff. But anyway, like, his advice was, and I never really considered this. He told me to wait a couple weeks post surgery before I start throwing the peptides in, because the accelerated scar tissue.
Oh yeah.
Accumulation, because he said the peptides are going to increase collagen synthesis. So I'm holding off until 2 weeks post surgery. And his suggestion was to wait until I get into I did my first rehab session today, get into the rehab, and then I can start introducing that stuff in to make sure that there's let the body do its initial healing process to heal up the wound site.
So I'd heard that, but I didn't ever hear a time frame on it. So he's saying 2 weeks. That's interesting.
He told me 2 weeks. He told me to wait 2 weeks, so I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the typical stuff, some BPC, TB500. I'm on TRT right now. I'm going to run GH at 5-6 units, nothing crazy, and then probably a little low dose Anavar. Anavar is good for collagen synthesis and wound healing. It's originally what it was designed for. So that was what I used when I did my ACL tear, and I was able to get back in 6 months from the ACL tear. They told me about 5 months recovery for this, so if I can cut it down to like 3 or 4, I'd be happy with that.
Nice.
And then it's back to training, and I would like to do a show next year, possibly. We'll see.
When I tore my supraspinatus. Oh, I'm sorry. I think there's a leg. Go ahead.
I was saying I'm the lightest I've been in a long time, though. Right now, I'm really downsized.
Yeah.
To be expected, though.
Yeah. I was going to add that
240.
Dante told me to use collagen. That's when I first got hooked on it, when I tore my supraspinatus. And I was using growth. No, was I using growth? I can't even remember at the time. But I remember, though, that I got that. The one thing, I wasn't using growth at that time yet. And I remembered that the one thing I noticed is with GH, I always noticed my fingernails grow a lot faster.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the same effect from just taking collagen. And I was like, there's something to this. So, you can't really tell if it worked or not. But I'm a believer after seeing the side effects I got.
Well, it's kind of like you got to think about it this way. The collagen is just proteins, right? They're amino acids. So your body's going to break those down and do with it whatever they need to. But if you have the stimulus there to increase collagen synthesis, so the growth hormone, the BPC, the Anavar, taking some collagen peptides could potentially help with the additional collagen synthesis. But if you're eating plenty of protein, there's probably enough amino acids present anyway. But they're just amino acids at the end of the day.
I feel the same.
Yeah,
that's why I always tell Scott, I don't know if it.
I get that. Dante will talk to you about that. I'll tell.
Yeah, no,
I'll
no. And here's the thing. I mean, I always say.
Oh, he messages me when he hears me say stuff.
Or if they work for anybody else, that's cool. I just, on paper, breaking them down. I even have a few guys that I went to school with who are doctors, and I'm like, just sell me on this, and they're like, I can't. They're amino acids.
Well, Skip, there were also horse and carriages before there were cars, and those people were
well played. Well played.
Very well played.
I was waiting on that because I was like, he says he's so against. You guys weren't there with us before.
I'm trying to find my notes on it. I did a video on this recently, but yeah, when I looked into it, it's the raw. There are certain amino acids necessary to synthesize collagen, and that's what's in the collagen peptides.
Yeah.
Now your body will do whatever with them. If you don't have the right tools in place to increase collagen synthesis, they're doing nothing at the end of the day. So think of it like delivering bricks to a construction site, and there's no construction workers there.
Yeah.
So the HGH, the Anavar, the BPCs are like the construction workers. The collagen's like the bricks to the construction site.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have some of your own. I would believe you have some of your own workers without it, but you have a super
you do,
force.
But
you know what I mean? With those
when
things.
you are old like me, there might not be many workers at the job site.
So what's the recovery on this? Like, what do they say? How long is this going to take?
Told me about 5 months. About 5 months, and then I can start going back to full activity. 4 to 6 weeks in the sling. The main thing is with the bicep tendon, the shoulder he wasn't worried about, but the bicep tendon, because of the way they drill a hole through the bone and anchor it through, and he was worrying about, because of the muscle mass that I have, ripping that graft out of ripping that where the anchors out of the bone where they anchor that thing in. Basically, they screw it into the bone.
Yeah. Whew.
So that was the worry. So no, I have to take my time.
And how did this happen? How did you get to this point?
Just wear and tear is what they told me. They said it was just years and years. That bicep tendon gets loose, and then it starts rubbing across the supraspinatus, the labrum, and the bone up there, and it just basically gets sawed off over years and years and years and years of wear and tear. He told me specifically there's some exercises that are probably long-term cause this type of stuff. Like he was telling me, like if you, we always talk about stretch-mediated hypertrophy, but he was talking about like if you're getting like big stretches on things like dumbbell flies, and if you're doing wide grip bench presses with your arms out like this, you see how much I'm sweating, that those put a lot of pressure on that tendon and stretch that tendon out over time. Pull-ups, like if you're, or pull downs, like if you're letting yourself stretch really far at the other end of it. He said it might be best not to go for a full stretch on those things to save the bicep tendon long term. And he talked about like distal bicep tendon ruptures, like at the bottom. A lot of guys do that on preacher curls. When they get that really long stretch at the end of preacher curls, they snap that distal tendon. That happened to you, Andrew?
I didn't snap the tendon, but I tore a piece of muscle off the tendon, and a day before show, or 2 days before show. So
yeah, and that's like the worst time to get hurt too, because you're so dried out from the drugs.
Yeah. It was a 20 or a 25 pound dumbbell, like last exercise of the prep, literally last set of the prep.
Holy shit, that's.
And it was like, man. I'm like, oh fuck, something just happened. And then, I was supposed to go to Bev's gym and pose for Steve and do a photo shoot that day, but I canceled that, and I still did that. It was Eastern USA's 2018, and I still did it. And then when I was on stage, flexing my bicep in the first front double, because I hadn't hit a pose because I was kind of scared. I'd done like some very light posing. And the first time I hit a pose, I heard another little pop.
Oh, Jesus.
And I'm like, mother, did I just, and I look over, I'm like, did I just tear the whole thing? And luckily I didn't. But you remember Bumstead when he did, what was it, 2022 Olympia, where that bicep was like kind of cloudy, or it was, that's how it looked on stage for me. Like it was, the size was there, but it just, the inflammation and all that, it just didn't have the same peak. And oddly though, like, because of that little tear, it's kind of like the Jay Cutler tear. It gave me a better peak on that side going forward once it healed back up.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a better look on my bicep overall.
So
and
then you go back and you try to tear the other one.
Well, I asked the doctor. I was like, "Hey," when he said there was nothing to fix on this one, he's like, "There's nothing I can really do. You tore the muscle off the tendon, not the tendon off the." I was like, "Well, can you do it on this side for me?" He looked at me like I was crazy.
They did tell me that because they pulled the bicep tendon down lower and inserted it lower, that I would have a higher peak. I have really flat biceps to begin with because I have really long tendons. He said that should give me more of a peak, so I'll have to hide the one arm. I don't know how to figure out how to do
get
that.
all
Side
classic,
chest from that
hide
side
this
now.
one here.
Yeah.
Do that. Yep, there we go.
Nice.
Well, listen, we appreciate everybody tuning in, and Paul, we appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us, man.
Yeah, man.
How
Great
are
talking
things-
to you guys.
How are things going over at Anabolic Bodybuilding? What do you got coming up?
Good. I'm just doing my thing, man. I got the Anabolic course up. If anybody wants to go a deep dive into PEDs, there's about 60 hours of content on there right now. 100 or so modules. I've worked on it with Kurt Havens. We put a lot of work into it. I think it's a pretty solid course. Sorry, my dogs are going off in the background, but other than that, just making content and coaching and helping people.
Oh yeah, that's cool. And you said you're going to be out at what was that, Masters? You going to?
Yeah, I'm going to Masters Nationals. I'll be there probably at USA's, North Americans. I don't think I'm going to do the Olympia this year. I got some shit going on around the Olympia, so I don't think I'm going to make the Olympia. We'll see.
Okay.
How about New York? You going to New York at all?
No, I'm not going up for that one.
And then I know you wanted to do possibly Tampa this year before the injury happened. What are you looking at for possibly 2026, or is it not even on the menu yet?
We'll see. I want to get through the rehab first, so like kind of that would put me back into training again, full force. Early fall, September, October. If I could get a short off season in and then do a prep for a summer show, so probably. I was thinking the Tampa or maybe Chicago Pro. There's not many pro shows that have Masters divisions.
Well, so actually, I did look up the thing because I was oddly looking myself earlier today. The Hurricane and the St. Pete show, either one of them or both of them have the Masters 40, 45, and 50 class.
Yeah,
and
so
I think
does the Tampa.
Tampa does too, yeah. But I'm saying, like, if you're looking for shows even later in the season, if you needed to push that timeline back a little bit, they're like, September and October or maybe even November. So you got a little bit more time if recovery just wasn't happening and you wanted a longer off season before you started.
Yeah, I'm down about 240 now. I was on stage at 250, so I need to put some size back on. But I just been cruising on TRT pretty much since my show.
Yeah.
I just been
With
taking
that break though, you may come back real fresh.
That's what I'm thinking.
Very well, recover,
Yeah.
and you might rebound really, really well.
I've been like my diet. I get tired of eating, man. I've only been eating like 3 times a day. That's kind of what I've been doing the last 3, maybe 4.
Well, digestion
Still
should be
bodybuilding
healing
food.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Break might do good.
but I'm
Inflammation
looking
down.
forward to getting back to a structured diet, though.
Yeah.
We appreciate you guys tuning in, and of course we've got Paul's link in the description. Head over to see him at Anabolic Bodybuilding. I'm sure you guys already are. We have a good crossover here, I think, because your channel is one of our more watched channels. So I think that everybody who watches us is also watching you too. So people always love.
Well,
the
your channel's
crossovers,
my
man.
favorite. You're
Wow,
my favorite
thank
bodybuilding channel.
We appreciate that, man. We appreciate that. And of course, go to bodyberry.com. Reach out to Andrew for coaching. Go to teamskip.com to reach out to Skip and hit me up, McNallyDiets@gmail.com. Thank you to TrueNutrition.com. Use our code THINK to get your hydrolyzed beef collagen to fix your bicep tendons across the country. And of course, supplementsource.ca for Canadians. And guys, if we have any Patreon questions, we'll be tackling them on the next show. In fact, Patreon people, you guys better step it up. Start leaving us some more questions for BSG. Thank you, guys.